Hey folks, welcome back to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today again we are continuing with the audit and the auditors, right? So in the immediate preceding lecture, right, what have we seen is the section 139 about rotation, right? So that was a new concept that we have come across. We did not have any of such kind of provision in our Companies Act 1956, right? So I hope the entire session was very clear with you and you have understood the concept of rotation as per the term, and each term consists of 5 years, right? Now, okay, we have understood what rotation means and what are the procedures that yes, even before the completion of the term, how do we go ahead with the removal of auditors or the resignation, all those things have been seen, right? Now today what we understand is about what happens after appointment or what modifications can be made, right? For example, if there is an audit firm, right, for a tenure of one term, 5 years, now the members, they decide even to change the partners of the team, right? So let us see what section deals with it and how do we go ahead with the same. So now we see the provisions with respect to the rotation by members, and this is also the part of section 139, right? So what it says is that the members, right, the members of the company who has appointed the auditors will decide as to the tenure of the same team. That means if there's a firm, right, they are there for one term and the members are in the mood of keeping them for the next term as well. So they will pass a resolution after the first term is over to continue with the same auditor in the next term. I'm just taking a hypothetical example, right? Now what happens is the firm that has been appointed as the auditor, right, that firm may have several partners, right? Now what the members say is that if there's one partner with one particular team coming over and over for 10 years, right, then the entire job becomes a routine. Instead of an audit, it becomes a job to analyze the financial statement, and they'll assume and presume a lot of things, right? So the members, they decide, okay, a particular team should come to audit only for 3 consecutive years, and then the team needs to change. That means again 3 years down the line, we want to revise the entire thing, again go through all the walkthroughs, all the procedures, understand the entire compliance and stuff, and then move ahead. And understand the intention behind it also. Right? It is because there is something that has changed or something that has been overlooked in the first time. Right? That can be traced. So they're just trying to minimize the risk. So instead of changing the auditors on the whole, what are they trying is to rotate the partners or the team, right? So the members may decide the frequency and intervals at which the audit partner and the team will rotate. That is within the firm, right? So in the previous lecture, what we had seen is the rotation of the entire firm. So one firm goes out, the other firm comes in, or the individual, one individual goes out, other individual comes in. But now what we are analyzing and seeing is that the firm is there. Now we are rotating within the firm. Right, okay. Now understand, if there's a firm, rotation within the firm is possible. But what in the case of an individual? Rotation within an individual cannot be possible, right? We cannot say, please, you are split personality, shift and shift. Come on, that's not practical, right? So what they can do, the members, they can appoint one more individual along with that individual, right? So the members may decide whether one or more auditor will conduct the audit. So when we talk about individuals also, it is not just one particular individual. It is one or more going ahead with the same thing. Right? So do you understand the provisions? The provisions of the rotation by members within the firm or the complete thing, right? So next we move ahead to understand the rules for rotation of the auditors, right? That is rule 6. Now, when we talk about the rules of rotation of auditors, right, it is not specifically a very big rule that, yeah, this is how they have to be. No, it's nothing like that, right? When we talk about rule means, rules again understand is something that explains the law, that explains the act, right? So what does the rule say? That likewise, the way you had appointed the auditor in the first place, right? In the similar fashion, you will have to rotate the auditor as well. Confused, right? So understand, how did you appoint the auditor? When you moved ahead to appoint an auditor, there was a point, right? Either you have an audit committee in the company or you don't have an audit committee. If you have an audit committee, the audit committee will go ahead and understand who are the potential auditors, right? And then after checking the qualification and experience, will recommend it to the board. And then the board will evaluate it on its own end. And then if it finds it feasible, right? If the board finds that auditor eligible to be appointed as an auditor, will forward the name to the members. Else will refer it back to the audit committee. And the audit committee either will consider the recommendation or will not consider the recommendation and then take action accordingly. Right? So you remember we had a pattern like that while we were discussing about the appointment of the auditor in the very first class, second class, I guess. Right? So now in the similar fashion, we'll see the rules for rotation of auditors. Because understand when you're rotating, the only difference is that there was somebody who's replaced. Otherwise, in appointment, there was nobody, but somebody took the place. Right? So only the replacement part has changed, otherwise somebody else is taking the place in the same fashion. So do you understand if you relate to it? So let us see. There are two cases, right? One, in case there is an audit committee, and the other in case of no audit committee. So when there is an audit committee, the audit committee will similarly recommend the name of the auditor or the firm to the directors, the board of directors, right? The board of directors will then consider, right? They shall consider whatever recommendation has come from the audit committee. And then the board of directors will recommend a name to the members, right? Now the board of directors may recommend a name by themselves, may recommend the name given by the committee. That is the discretion of the board of directors, right? Nobody has any role to play in that. Understand the thing, right? So if we move ahead to rule 2. So in rule 2, in case of no audit committee, when there is no audit committee, the board does not receive any recommendation. It's as simple as that. Right? And the other things remain the same. Why? Because now board has to select somebody and refer it to the members. So exactly that is what happens. The board shall consider the rotation and the board will recommend the next auditor to the members. Right? And that is all about it. Do you understand? So this is about the rules of rotation of auditors and the rule is rule 6. Now that was rule 1, rule 2 that we have basically seen, right? Now that was something which we have already seen in the terms of appointment of auditor as well. But now there are certain things that has to be kept in mind because this is not a place where somebody is just appointed. Somebody is also leaving or vacating that office at the same time, right? So the person who is appointed or the firm that is appointed is actually replacing somebody, right? So accordingly, there are certain more rules that will take into place. So what does rule 3 say? Rule 3 says that the time period of an auditor prior to this act shall be taken for calculating 5 to 10 consecutive years, right? Because now we are not talking about the new person coming in. We are talking about first the old individual or the old firm moving out of the company, right? So the point is, okay, we have to rotate. Okay, this is the procedure for appointment of a new auditor. But understand when to rotate. Unless and until the previous auditor is moved out of the company, how can you bring in a new auditor? Right? So first we need to see how are and when will they be removed or when are they supposed to vacate the office, right? As we have already discussed a brief about this in the previous lecture as well, right? That when are we supposed to leave? So we say that there is a tenure of 5 years, a term of 5 years, and for the firm it is 2 terms. That means 5 plus 5, 10 years. But understand this law or this act has just been enacted 3 years back, right? In 2013. But did the concept of auditors arise in 2013? No, it has been there. So the auditors were also there in the company. So will the company start afresh? No. The auditors were already in position for majority of the companies. When I say majority, means all the companies almost. Now this act has been placed. What does that mean? Will all the auditors retire the same day? And then there'll be a new appointment and everything will continue? The answer is no, right? So the auditors who were already there, right? Their previous term for which they have been there will also be considered in this term of 5 years. Because understand the logic behind the term of 5 years is just that no individual should be there for more than 5 years. It becomes very boring and it leads to a condition where casualty comes into place. Right? There is lethargy. There are a lot of things that can be skipped. So to keep the auditor on the toe, the auditor should not be knowing a lot of things that the auditor will try to hunt for. Right? But in 5 years time here you have hunted for a lot of things and now you know what is happening, what is not happening. Getting the point? So previous term will be calculated. So if there was an auditor who was there already for the past 2 years will continue for next 3 years. Somebody who was already for the past 1 year will continue for next 4 years. But what if somebody was there for the past 4 years already? Will they all of a sudden retire this year? The answer is no. As we have seen in the previous lecture also, that they will be given a time period of 3 years. So within 3 years, you have to take into consideration this provision, right? That means either if it's your discretion, if you want to remove the auditor in the first year, you can. If you don't want to, you can continue for the next year and the next year. But after 3 years, because cumulatively the tenure has been 5 years or more, you will have to rotate. But if the tenure is not yet 5 years, that means if the auditor had just begun in the previous year and then the act fell into place, you can keep the auditor for the next 4 years because cumulatively your rotation has not yet occurred. Another point, that was rule 3. Next is rule 4. Incoming auditor or firm from same brand name or trade name or common control as that of the outgoing auditor is not eligible. Right? When we talk about this, we actually talk about the same network. So if there is another auditor, like let's talk about a firm, there was a firm ABC that is moving out and LMN is coming in, right? But what we see is that ABC and LMN may be working on the same brand name, right? They may be working on the same trade name, or they may have a common control. They may be one controlling body that is managing both the firms, just registered in two different names. Possible, right? Under the same name, they have multiple firms. Possible, right? So in that case, all of these will be disqualified. Means all of these will not be allowed to replace the retiring auditor. If I take an example of KPMG in that case, right? So KPMG has BSR ampersand Co, BSR ampersand Company, BSR and Associates, BSR and Associates LLP, lot of entities, right? But they all operate under the same BSR, KPMG, right? So they have common control. So that doesn't mean that, okay, for rotation, let me remove BSR ampersand Co and take in BSR and Co or BSR and Company. Because it's a different name, right? But no, they have common control, they have same trade name, they have the same brand name, right? So they cannot. But yeah, instead of BSR, they can take in Bartley Boy, that is EY, right? They can take in Walker and Chindoik, that is Grant Thornton. So this is how the rotation actually takes place. So these are also some things that need to be taken care of. Right? We know that okay, we are supposed to retire the previous and take in the new, but when and why and how? So these rules are the answer for your when, why and how, right? Next we have rule 5. And what does rule 5 say? The break in 5 years will be counted in requirement of rotation. Right? So what do we understand by the break? So it actually says that if there is a break, right, in the term of the continuous period of 5 years, that shall be considered as fulfilling the requirement of rotation. Do you understand what it means to say? See, there is an audit firm, right? This is again talking about the loophole. You appointed an audit firm for your audit. That firm has been there with you for the past 4 years, right? And now there's a risk. If you continue with that same firm, if you ratify it even in the 4th year, and that firm continues in 5, after 5, that firm has to vacate the office. Why? The rotation will take place. What can you do? You can remove the auditor in the 4th year itself. Appoint someone else for the 5th year and bring them back in the 6th year. What happened? Again the 6th year is the 1st year, right? Again the 6th year is the 1st year. So that is why if you look at the rule 5, it says a break in the term of continuous period of 5 years shall be considered as fulfilling the requirement of rotation. Means it is allowed. Because it is not a continuous period of 5 years, there is a break. Your condition of rotation is fulfilled. You can rotate now, not a problem. And you can rotate and come back, not a problem. So that is not a loophole actually, right? If you see the rules have already defined it, that yes, that can be done. At least give a break of 1 year, 2 years. Are you getting the point? This is exactly it. That you don't compulsory have to continue for 5 years and then break for 5 years. No. Continue for 4 years, break for 1 year, again continue for 4 years, break for 1 year, continue for 4 years, break for 1 year. Do that. Who stops you? In case of firm, continue for 9 years, break for 1 year, continue for next 9 years, break for 1 year. It's allowed. Right? Your rule 5 says. Read it once again. Break in 5 years will be counted in the requirement of rotation. It is the requirement of rotation. It will be counted over there. Okay? The last rule you have over here is rule 6, which says retiring partner who signs financials and has control of audit firm renders any other firm that he joins also ineligible for appointment. Right? So Mr. X from KPMG, right, resigns from KPMG, joins EY, right? And in the year when the KPMG was supposed to rotate, means KPMG was supposed to leave a client. Do you think the client can appoint EY as the auditor? Answer is no. Why? Because this auditor who has shifted from KPMG and moved on to EY will have some influence, right? This partner has already seen the client, has already known everything about the client, will have the influence, and that audit will become a little easy for EY. They know what to check, what not to check, what is happening, what's not happening. So again, the effectiveness is gone. So the purpose, right, or the intention behind the rotation is defeated. Right? It's defeated. And once it is defeated, what is the point of getting along with it? Right? So this loophole was identified and bridged. They have already said that if you are an auditor, if you are a partner in one XYZ firm, right, and we now plan to rotate XYZ firm and take in element, you cannot go and start with element and we take in element. No. We want a fresh firm, right? So the intention behind the entire law should not be defeated. It has to prevail, right? If you get into the interpretation of statute again, mischievous things, right? So that is something we need to take care of. But now again consider a case, right? What happened is the partner was there in XYZ. Now what happened is the company rotated XYZ with element and element continued. The partner is still with XYZ. But in the third year, the partner leaves XYZ and goes on to element. Now what happens is the question. Will element be disqualified now or will element continue? Right? So this is a homework for you guys. So if you have actually understood the entire thing, if you have actually understood the concept, right, find out an answer for this. I have been spoon feeding with every information so far, right? But this is something I want you to find out. Go ask. Why? Because that will help you understand it better. Get to an answer, and I will not be giving the answer in the next lecture itself, because next lecture will be coming up just tomorrow. I want to give you people 2-3 days time to analyze things, right? And before this chapter ends, I will reconsider this query and I'll give you an answer for that. First you find out and I'll let you know what you have found out is right or wrong. But this is the case study. You can check for any questionnaires, you can check with any CA, you can check with any practical people who are applying this, check with anybody, but get an answer. Because when you go out to check, right, that person with whom you're discussing will ask you a lot of things, will check you on a lot of things, and that is where your concepts will be clear. Because understand it's a new thing coming up. You have to be crystal clear on this. So just check. The appointment over there is not wrong. The appointment is valid. The firm has continued. 3 years it continued. 4th year, the previous partner comes in. Now what happens? In the 4th year, will that continuation be valid or will it be invalid? Right? I understand it's a difficult question for you guys. But yeah, get an answer. Anyways, you will get an answer from me. Not a problem, right? But what I want you is to brainstorm a little bit. Go Google. If you get the answer, write it down in the comment. I'll reply there, right? So that is a homework, that's a task for you. And we have so far discussed the rules for rotation and stuff, and we have gone through rule 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? That's it for the day. I'll see you guys back in the next lecture. Until then, keep finding the answers, right? Okay guys, thank you, bye-bye. I'll see you back in the next lecture.